Good morning everyone, welcome to our Office 365 webinar from ACUTEC. So just to say thank you to everyone who was waiting in the room, I guess, waiting for it to start. I'm here today with Simon, who's our Business Development Manager.
Morning everyone.
And we're going to talk today about Office 365. And I'm Amy, by the way, I forgot to say that. So if we get started, Simon, do you want to begin? What exactly is Office 365 and how would you define it?
Right, okay, excellent question. I think first of all there's been a lot of talk, it's now very much advertised on the TV about Microsoft Office 365. So I just want to quite simply kind of explain exactly what that is, and I want to kind of really focus on two particular areas. So first of all, it's a Microsoft product. I want to talk about two areas, which is going to be the Exchange element, so your email side of things. And on that slide, we've just got about full Office, although I am going to expand on that a little bit more. But essentially, I want to keep it as simple as saying that it's Microsoft's cloud-based solution. Yeah? And that solution is a server that is not on your premises, and keep it as simple as that, really. Okay? It's not going to be completely groundbreaking and revolutionise your life, but hopefully it can improve the continuity of how your business can operate. So I want to start off really with the Exchange element. So first of all, Exchange, email, whatever we want to call it. Cloud email is certainly nothing new, and I think that's the important thing. There's a couple of areas mentioned there, which is the Gmail side of things, Hotmail. I'm sure we've all heard of terms like that. These have always been very useful products. They've never been quite as robust and functional as Outlook, as we may be aware, which is essentially Outlook sits on an Exchange server. What we've now basically got is Outlook in the cloud. So we've got the benefits that we had of Hotmail and Gmail, so that mobile working, that remoteness that we can have, but we've got it with the functionality of Microsoft Outlook. I guess one thing, I don't want to go too technical today, but I guess the benefits of why we would do this, if we take something like Exchange and look at our server that might be on site at the moment, that Exchange on it is quite intense on it. So I don't want to get into the figures, but you need 16 gig of RAM just to even run an Exchange server is recommended. So basically we're asking our server to do a lot just by dealing with our emails, and what we'd rather be doing is getting our emails sitting in the background, being very effective, and let the server work on things like our file, our SQL, and things like that. Okay. Obviously, connectivity is important, but if I'd like to kind of steer it on the other side, I had a client not long ago, and they had to have their server rebooted, and there was a little bit of work they had to have done. Their emails weren't the reason that any of this had to be thought about. However, because they had to reboot the server and there was issues there, suddenly they had no email for a couple of hours. Remote working wasn't an option for them in this particular case because their emails were on the server. They didn't all have things like VPN access. Their orders come in via email, their quotes go out by email. So they were literally, their business was caused a real problem, and continuity was an issue. Obviously yes, you need connectivity, but even if the connectivity in the office is broken, there's nothing to stop us jumping in our cars, going home and working mobile if it's just about email usage. Okay.
Brilliant, Simon, thank you. So as we've discussed, if we go into mobility, I know you actually use the apps all the time for Outlook, especially on your phone, your iPad. You use all the different synchronization options. So why don't we discuss that and how that helps you on a day-to-day basis?
I think mobility is a massively important benefit to the whole Office 365 element. And as Amy mentioned there, I'll be I'm either in the office, so that's fine. I can work in an on-premise environment if you like in that case, and I work on my PC. I've also got a home laptop, which sometimes I'll just jump on that an evening and I've still got exactly the same Outlook client on my home PC as I have at work. I also am on the road, so I'm using my smartphone or my tablet, and I can still have the apps for my office products there. So I know we're focusing on Outlook here. Again, I've been in the environment where I've had the old-fashioned smart email. It just doesn't give you the functionality of full Outlook. now we've got that. So whether it's app or whether it's actually fully installed on an alternative device, I think the important thing we should talk about here is that it's a multiple device operated solution. And Office 365, you may hear the term user-centric. Essentially, you are buying a license, in my case for Simon G, if you like. Previously, when we bought Office or Outlook, you were buying it for that specific device. And if the device breaks, you've got to buy it again. If we talk about the numbers game, you know, there's some figures on there in terms of how much people are working outside of the office these days, and that is becoming an increasing figure.
You're essentially buying the user experience rather than this is for your PC, this is for your tablet. You're buying a separate user experience for every person, essentially.
That's it.
So we've talked about Exchange, but obviously, you know, it's Office 365. Office is kind of the heart of it. So if we're going to talk about the full sort of spec, the full stream, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so again, there are lots of different elements to Office 365. Initially, what we've seen traction on is that a sensible thing from a business to do, we've mentioned the Exchange. We put a full Office on one of the first slides there. The term that I prefer to call is Business Premium, which is the second level of offering really within the Office 365 application. That gives us straight away the applications such as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So that's what we're talking about here. Rather than buying Microsoft Office as a CD or a barcoded license, if you like, you're buying Office 365 Business Premium. There's also other options such as things like OneDrive. Amy, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about what OneDrive can offer us?
Yeah, so OneDrive is great. So as Simon was mentioning with the Outlook and having your apps across your devices, OneDrive is kind of the same thing, but it connects to everything else. So within the Outlook app, you have access to OneDrive, but within Word, Excel, PowerPoint, the apps within those, they all connect across as well. So if I've been doing a document on my laptop at work in the office, it will automatically sync with my phone. So then if I'm saying getting the train to a meeting, say in Milton Keynes, which is where I was last week, I can then look on the train and that document is sitting there waiting for me. I can edit it. Next time I have an internet connection, because we all know what it's like on the train, it'll then sync straight away as well. So it's always across your devices and you can have that mobility.
If I can perhaps simplify that a little bit as well, you know, I'll use it very simply that I'll be working on, let's say, an Excel spreadsheet, and I think, right, okay, I want to look at that at home tonight. When I'm in peace and quiet, opposed to in an office environment. Previously, what I might have done was save it to a USB drive, take the USB drive home, get home, put it in there, urgent work for the next morning, USB drive fails. They go corrupt, or I'm having to use that method of transferring. Essentially now I can just save that file to OneDrive, get home, open the spreadsheet. I'm not fiddling around with additional devices. I just need to basically open that file via OneDrive. It's just like opening a file through any Windows Explorer application, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. I think what's really great about it as well is if, for example, if you were to send me an attachment via email, I would then, at some point, I would lose that attachment. Like, Simon sent me that and I don't know where it is. Whereas if you share a document through OneDrive, that then stays sort of in your shared area, so you're always able to find it afterwards, and there's not that sort of faff of I can't find the email. So it's always really good for that as well.
That's it. And just to kind of give you an idea of how much space you've got, so you've got a terabit of storage per user in OneDrive. So again, it should be a good enough amount of space. This isn't to completely replace your file server. You know, this is your own personal storage space, if you like, although you can share files via OneDrive as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I think other things, I know I've mentioned about multiple devices, etc. You know, I just want to kind of come back to that a little bit, because again, I've used the example of working in the office on an office PC, I've working at home, and I've had to purchase separate licenses. I no longer need to do that. So again, I know I've mentioned it already, but I think it's a really important feature. The other thing is the latest versions. I'm sure we've all been in the scenario within an organisation, and some people are on Office 2007, some people are on 2010, some people are on 13, 16, etc. By moving to the Office 365 way, you are on the latest version of the product. Dare I mention the competition of Apple and how we update our apps there? Microsoft have followed that suit. So there's no longer about, all right, I need to now buy all of these people a new version of Microsoft Office. If you're a 50 user site, you know, it's quite a big capital expenditure to do them all at once. So either you do that, or you have different versions across the site, which then file compatibility can be an issue. You know, we take that pain away. It doesn't need to be capital expenditure. It can be either a monthly or an annual cost, depending on how you want to roll that out. And you've got no version mismatch anymore. I'll let you take this one, Amy. Okay. Skype for Business.
Okay. So I guess one way to look at it is that everyone on this webinar today is using Skype for Business, even if they have logged in via the browser. So if you don't have it, you can still access it. So essentially, it's a communication tool that was originally for home use and is now, so it's replaced Link as the business tool. So you can have meetings or calls with anyone. You can instant message. So for example, one of the great things about it is, so I'm in the office, Simon's out on the road, our manager is working from home. The need of location, it no longer becomes a barrier. We're able to communicate and have a meeting even though we're all over the place and it's difficult to get diaries in sync. So it's really good for being able to have that face-to-face, because you can use video calling and still be able to get on with the meetings that we need to attend. But one of the ways that I personally use it, as you can see from today, is that you can capitalise on it by using it for different purposes if you're a bit imaginative with it. So we use it to provide webinars to our clients, to provide this kind of thing where we tell you a bit more about different things. You could also hold international meetings. You could provide training. So, for example, if you've got somebody in to do training, but everyone's all over the place, some people need to be at home, some people need to be at a meeting, it's great because you can provide that training online essentially. So that's basically how we use it.
I think it's also important from a cost point of view, because there is no additional cost. So as much as we put Microsoft Office as one of the offerings, the Office 365 Business Premium comes free with a Skype for Business. And I think, just to reiterate what Amy said there, you can still do either voice or video conferencing to your outside clients if they haven't got this, and I think that's a really powerful tool. I must admit, with things like this, I can be sceptical about the benefits sometimes. I'd almost parallel to my Sky Plus. Suddenly, you know, there's features, if I don't have Sky anymore, I'm lost. So once you have functionality such as Skype for Business and you start using it, it can be a real benefit.
And I think what you've just said about cost as well, this today has cost us absolutely nothing to put on apart from my time essentially. When we originally started doing this, we used something called GoToMeeting and we used a trial. But if we had gone on to use the full version, it could have cost us about £40 a month to use, when sometimes we don't even hold a webinar 1 month. So, yeah. So, achieving more every day, Simon.
Yeah, so I think we've already kind of talked about OneDrive, the fact that's our personal storage area. Again, we can also share those files as well. I know you're quite a big and heavy user of OneNote, Amy.
Yeah, OneNote's great. One of the ways that I personally use it is within the marketing team here, we have a shared notebook. So obviously it's quite a creative role and you need to share ideas. So we will have a notebook and then it has tabs. It's great for organisations. You have tabs, and then within that you have pages and sub-pages, and we'll have, say, like an ideas page, we'll have a social media page, an events page. Everything goes in there. I can update it and it literally instantly does it on the other person's computer, so we're always up to date and know what's going on. And then on a personal level, I know you use it on a personal level.
Yeah, I mean, I use it. You know, I've got a number of clients. I know there's some of them here, and literally I'll go out to a meeting, I'll make notes in my OneNote. And every time I have a separate meeting, literally I'll have a separate tab, and it just keeps it as a... I used to use the likes of Microsoft Word, and it was quite difficult to kind of maintain the ongoing conversation of that as much as anything, where OneNote allows me to categorise it into dates a lot easier, but keep it all together rather than having lots of separate Word documents all over the place.
There's extra tools in it as well. I mean, when I go and do sort of a case study interview, so I know that one person on this has actually experienced me do this, I will record the conversation and have notes at the same time, and then that recording will be saved within the OneNote, so then I can always go back and make notes at the same time as I'm building the story. And
sorry,
I was about to introduce you. Say, do you want to speak about Planner?
Yeah, so some of you may be familiar with the likes of Microsoft Project. again, when I look back, Microsoft Project started as a relatively simple application, then over the years it's got more and more complex. What we have is essentially a cut down version of Microsoft Project in here. So again, allowing you to put your tasks with durations, assign resources to tasks, see things like Gantt charts, so we can see a flow of critical work. So again, that has recently been applied into the Office 365, and I think it's worth pointing out here the fact that I said it's recently been applied. So Microsoft are continuing saying, actually, let's put this offering into the solution. Another recent one was, Microsoft Access was an additional charge. It's now come as part of that business premium application.
Definitely. And I think Teams is another one that's quite interesting. So that can be a little bit like WhatsApp to a certain extent. It brings the collaboration together within the team. So you can put like, oh, well, we've achieved this today, and then carry on down. So, Simon, who uses it? That's probably a really good question to ask.
I think there's probably slide details everything, but what I always essentially say is that Office 365 is literally an enterprise level solution. So, for example, Barclays Bank are using it, and there'll be many other companies at that level that also use it. But at the same time, it can also be aimed at single users. From our client perspective, our probably ranges that our smallest size user is someone like Dazzle, who are a 3-user site. Now, are they using all the features? I know, are they using Skype for Business?
I believe they are, actually, because they have a lot of employees out and about. So they're an employment agency to a certain extent. So there's 3 of them in the office, but then they obviously have people on their books, and they Skype with the people out and about on their events.
And then right through to a bigger organisation, so the Royal Shakespeare Company, one of our clients, and again, they've got approximately 3,000 seats on there. So again, really in terms of who it's aimed at everybody. There is no differentiation. It's based on a user costing method. But yeah, whether you're a 20,000 user, a 1 user, you get the same product. Okay.
Do you want to talk about how the servers work with that? I mean, you upgrade it every 5 years, but is that worthwhile, this product? I mean,
well, I kind of guess that goes back to one of the earlier slides that we talked about as well. Traditionally, probably servers, this will always raise a good debate, but servers are probably replaced ideally every 3 to 5 years. What I want to think about here is from a costing perspective again, is that when you have a new server, if you had Exchange on the old one, you'd pay for consultancy essentially and licensing to migrate your Exchange from one server to another. The next time you have a server, you are doing exactly the same thing over and over again, and that's a continuous cycle. Obviously with the likes of Office 365, yes, there is a migration initially, but it's a one-off scenario. You never then need to migrate those mailboxes again. They are in that Office 365 cloud. They are looked after from there. Obviously, because it's an operational expenditure, again, licenses you are just paying for, and that's already in the IT budget, if you like. Okay. I think the other thing I want to talk about there is from a scalable product perspective. It might be that you're a business and you need 20 users to have email. You've had 15 people who have already recently had Office, but the other 5 haven't had a new version for some time. Well, maybe what you want to do is add 5 users on the full Office 365 of 15 who are just having the Exchange element. Again, you can mix and match that. It's not a problem. And then at a later date, if you want to roll everybody out on the business premium, again, it's a very simple upgrade process.
So let's get on to the question that most people are probably thinking at this point, which is, how much is this going to cost you at the end of the day? So do you want to speak about that? You're probably the best person to speak to.
Yeah. So Exchange, essentially, this price is on a monthly basis, on a per user. That's how it's worked. Remember that user-centric topic that we discussed. So for £3.80 per user, that gives you your email solution. Okay. If you want to go for business premium, this is not an additional £9.40, but if you had, instead of just the Exchange element, if you went for the business premium, that includes Exchange at £9.40 per user per month. Okay. I know there are some non-for-profit organisations attending here. So again, from a licensing perspective, as Microsoft like to have that ethical tick box, there is a term for it, Amy. Corporate
donation. It's corporate social responsibility.
There we go. Sounds very impressive.
Yes, it does.
But essentially, for Exchange, your licensing is free of charge. If you want to go for the business premium option, then it's a £1.50 a month per user.
Definitely. Right, so moving on. We'd just like to thank you all for attending. It's been brilliant this morning. I recommend that you download our cloud guide. I don't know if that link will work on Skype. If it doesn't, I will send everyone a link to our cloud guide. It gives you some brilliant tips on how to use different aspects of Office 365 from Skype. It'll also talk about some things about Azure, which is another product that we do. So please get in touch if you have any more questions. What we're going to do now is we are going to wait around for about 10 minutes to answer any questions you have. So if I just here go, that popping up in your screen, that's me saying hello. So please come into the chat box and ask us any questions at all. It doesn't just have to be about Office 365, it can be about IT in general as well. I'm sure Simon will be able to answer your questions. So I've just seen a question that has come up, which is, right, that is actually a technical question, which I will come back to soon. That's not relevant to this, but I will get back to you, Cal, in a moment. But if anyone has any questions, please do feel free to type it into the box. I'm just going to mute while people are asking questions. Please feel free, we'll be here waiting for your questions. Right, we've had a message from Georgina. She has asked, if everyone is able to access remotely, how do you make sure they do not have data/files if they leave the company?
Okay, very good question. This remote working does kind of open that concern, I guess. There are a couple of answers, as always. First of all, yes, it's possible to remove that data. So because it's user orientated, that user is logged in as, for example, myself as simon.g@acutec.co.uk. So therefore, as an IT administration, we can then remove that user from it or actually restrict permissions. There is also an additional cost that we can bolt onto the business premium, which is EMS as well, which gives a wider control where literally you can completely wipe devices as well of applications and things like that. So yes, there's certainly enough security setup that we can remove those.
Definitely. And Microsoft, I attended Microsoft's Future Decoded in November, which is their conference for partners to take possible customers to. And at the conference, we had the Chancellor of the Exchequer there, who actually on that day revealed the government's new plans for cybersecurity, so that Microsoft is very much in tune with making sure that data is protected. Okay, so we're going to I'm going to mute again now. Please feel free to ask your questions in the chat box at the side. I'll keep popping it up so that you make sure to ask some questions. Okay, so we've had another question from Georgina asking, if you are migrating to 365, I understand that deleted emails are destroyed after 30 days. Is there a way to retain these deleted emails for longer? The answer to that is yes. So basically there's a product that can be added on called Litigation Hold, which allows you to go back even further through your deleted emails. It's mainly used for certain businesses like solicitors, because obviously they need to keep a record of everything, of all their conversations. But yes, that is in place if it is needed. I'll just mute again while we look at this next question. Okay, so we have another message from Georgina who asks, well, basically she says, our file structure is a mess. If we go into the cloud, would we move all our existing files? And how did we establish a more sterile file structure? So Simon, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, there's probably not a simple answer for this one. I think one thing that I'm very important to point out here is that the Office 365 elements that we've discussed here are not to replace your file server. In terms of how I can answer that with Office 365 is there is a product called SharePoint, or SharePoint Online to be accurate, where essentially file structures can be designed. So as in your traditional file structure in Windows Explorer, if you like, that can also be designed within SharePoint Online. how that's designed, really what I would always say is you take the best and most successful way of approaching that is that you literally structure it from scratch. There is obviously then a transfer period of saying, right, well, my existing structure, how do I move that and where do I want to move it? And there is a little bit of time involved to get that structure correct. If we just merge everything across, I'm going to be very honest, you'll be in exactly the same situation that you are if it's a mess. So that time is required. I think the important thing is that SharePoint Online gives you that solution to be able to do it. There is a second train of thought there where, although this is an additional product, there is also something called Azure, which is again a Microsoft cloud-based product. It's essentially, again, your server in the cloud where you can actually deploy a file server in the cloud, but they're two slightly different offerings. So it's probably quite difficult to answer exactly what your question is there, but hopefully that's given you some food for thought.
Yes, but feel free to get in contact. I know, Georgina, you're speaking to Steve at the moment to have a more sort of base question around your organisation. It would probably be better to ask Steve because obviously he understands exactly what's in place already. And I will mute again. Thank you for your questions. I'll mute again and see if anyone has any more. Thank you. Hi, so Janice has asked if Skype and Skype for Business are different. They are and they aren't to a certain extent. Skype itself is made for domestic use, basically. I used to use that myself to instant message my friends when I was at university. Skype for Business is for corporate use, essentially. It's obviously linked in with your Outlook. It's linked in with Office 365. Whereas your domestic one would not be, and there's features that would be missing because of that. Thank you. Okay, everyone, we're still waiting around. If there's any more questions, please feel free to ask, not just about Office 365, we can answer questions about Azure, IT itself, security as well. I do recommend we do have a security webinar coming up. If you would like to book onto that, I am more than happy to do that for you. But if you have any security questions as well, feel free, anything at all. Okay, everyone, it seems like nobody's got any extra questions, so I'm going to leave it here for today, but please feel free to get in contact, whether that's via Twitter. Please follow us on Twitter, I'd greatly appreciate it. Email, phone, you've all got my details. Please feel free to email along and let me know what's going on. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a brilliant day.